Yesterday, the 36th annual Winnipeg Fringe Festival kicked off. Artists from all over the world have come to Winnipeg to display their talents and present a mixture of shows that to the vastly diverse tastes of Winnipeg audiences. One of the highlights of the festival will be a show presented by Vancouver-based actor and writer Joanna Rannelli. Called Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, Confessions of a Hairstylist, this show explores the stories and secrets that are found and discussed in a hair salon. Nikki, a charismatic hairstylist with a knack for storytelling, and her 9 clients will entertain audiences with their saucy, scandalous, and hair-raising secrets shared while in the chair. The twist is all 10 characters are played by one actor, Joanna Rannelli herself. Inspired by true events, this dramedy is sure to captivate and entertain audiences, leaving audience members wanting to stay in the salon after the show is done. The performances take place at the Asper Centre for Theatre and Film at the University of Winnipeg, which is at 400 Colony Street. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, I am joined by the creator of the show, Joanna Rannelli. Hey, Joanna, nice to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I didn't mention this in the preamble, but Bangs, Bobs, and Banter is getting rave reviews. Can you talk about your experience with the show at the Orlando Fringe Festival?
Yeah, that was my second time being at the Orlando Fringe. Last year I brought a storytelling show about secrets, so it was very different. And this year I was in a bigger venue than I was last year. I came off the wait list. So I actually had to speed up the show of when it needed to be done because I actually didn't have to have it done until July. And it was an amazing experience. I didn't know actually what would happen when you premiere a show like this. We're just waiting for the feedback from the audience. So it was a little bit shocking. I was like, wow. And it's just such a fun show to perform. And the audience seemed to really love it.
And it won awards too, right?
It did. It won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Solo Comedy Show.
Fantastic. So this is your third time performing at the Winnipeg Fringe Festival. This is your second time doing a solo show. Your solo show last year, Private Parts, The Secrets We Keep, got rave reviews last year. What do you enjoy about performing in Winnipeg?
It's the people. It's incredible. The people are just so great. I've never experienced a festival that people take a couple weeks off to be here. And one of the scariest parts about it being a fringe artist is having to flyer, like to go up and actually promote shows. You think we're all extroverts and we want to do that, but it's really frightening. And we don't know how people are going to receive us, but people here want to talk to you. They want to experience the artist and the show. And so that's what I find so amazing about Winnipeg is it invites you with this big hug. And I love that. That's why last year I did a bring your own venue. So I wasn't a part of the draw. Like I didn't get into the draw last year, but I had to be here.
I know from the Fringe Festival that I've been to, people hand out handbills in the exchange district, and then you're doing that kind of thing as well, right?
Yes, and that's the part that's the scariest part. But I mean, this year I'm sharing also. I started to do this thing where I share with other shows. So we have front and back, which is nice because then you can actually talk about another show because not always will your show be the one that people are interested in.
Yeah.
So I love promoting other shows. I think this is a big community, you know?
Fantastic. You mentioned Carrie Ipama in your press release. I'm presuming she's your director for this show as well, like she was for Private Parts last year. Can you talk about her a bit? Who is she?
Yeah, so she's based in New York, and she is a writer and a performer. She performs a lot of successful shows, but one of the ones that probably people would remember from last year is 6 Chick Flicks. And they went on to Edinburgh and sold out shows, and then they got picked up, and they were just on a big UK tour. I met her in Edmonton Fringe a few years ago, and I didn't know her. I just went and saw her show. I went up to her after, introduced myself, and she gave me this big hug. And there's just something about her, and I needed to work with her. She works closely with TJ Daw as well. KK, Carrie, and TJ have created 6 Chick Flicks, and it's very successful and amazing. But anyways, I went to New York last year and worked a lot with her on my show. And this year we did it all remotely because she was touring. So it was an interesting journey to do it that way.
Yeah. So you would act over Zoom, I'm presuming, and then she would give you tips?
Yeah.
Or
So
hints,
a
or...
lot of it was done. We would share like a Google Doc, and we'd write, and then we'd have some Zoom stuff, and we would talk about the characters and talk about things. In the beginning, when I was pitching her the show, I said, I'm thinking maybe 5 characters. And she says, 10. And I was like, okay. And here we go. She's a great character actor. So I have such an amazing... So she dramaturged it and directed it.
Perfect. I want to talk about the show. Firstly, the show is partly inspired by true events. How? Is there a salon that you go to where these characters are?
Yes. To actually keep my hair up, I go every few weeks, and luckily she's one of my best friends. But yeah, I have been going to this salon for about 15 years. She's a good friend of mine, and she actually talked to me saying, you should consider doing a show about here, Joanna. Like, you know the stylist, you've been around here for so long. And I used to work at the YWCA that was across the street. And so this has kind of been in the works for a little while. And yeah, it's inspired by things I've seen, about stories I've been told. So just know, not always are all your secrets safe at the salon.
I want to talk about the characters. Can you first talk about the hairstylist, Nikki, and sort of describe her?
Yeah, so I changed her name for the show, of course, just to sort of protect her in the salon. Because we didn't really know exactly when I started to write it. It started very in truth and then sort of went from there. Yeah, she's a friend of mine. She's a really charismatic woman who's actually from Texas, and she lives in Vancouver. And I know her very well and her family. Like, I know lots about her. You don't learn a lot about Nikki in the show because her stories are told. Her life stories and who she is told through the 10 people. Well, the actual 9 people. It's 10, including Nikki, that come into the salon.
Can you talk, without giving away too much, can you talk about each one of the 9 clients in the salon?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when I was creating these characters, I took sometimes a few different characters and I combined them into one. So... yeah, there's people have talked about it a bit in reviews, so I'm not really giving away that much. But there is, it's kind of hard to just talk so much about them. There's a patient who is dealing with cancer, but she's full of life and she's checking things off her bucket list. I show up in the show. So I personally come in near the end of the show. There's a woman who falls for what she calls Mango Man. There's a very overstressed mother who's just trying to get her kids into swim lessons. There's lots. There's so much to talk about. I mean, I feel like I could go into this kind of forever. There's a girl who is kind of like my spirit of millennial, who's funded by her dad.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's she loves yoga and she's not dictated by time. Yeah. Yeah. And then I also play an 80-year-old woman who comes in who's very brass, and I won't give away the secrets of that scene. It's pretty funny.
And the crazy thing is, you're all the characters. So how do you make costume changes work and that kind of thing? Are there costume changes?
There are not costume changes. I actually have wigs.
Okay.
And so I have wigs on stage and I transform into these characters using these wigs, and there's music that's tied into each character as well that sort of gives an essence of who they are.
Nice. And what are you using for sets?
I use a salon chair, and these two, they're kind of like, they're portable clothing racks, and I have hung wigs on stage, and there's a little salon cart, and that's it.
Simple.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the themes that the play touches on? It's rated mature for sexual content, so I'm presuming sex and relationships are one of the themes. What are some of the other themes that it touches on?
Well, a big theme is secrets. So this is sort of carrying on from last year and the secrets that we keep. And so it's a lot about the service industry, and the themes are kind of how the service industry, how we kind of treat them, you know, and how how they're impacted by that.
Right.
So each of these characters sort of, if you take all of these characters and you put them into one, it creates one person in my world. So each of these people are a piece of me as well. And so, yeah, the themes are really, it's about friendship and love and forgiveness and living one time.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? And actually living your passion. Like for Nikki, this is her passion. She's in the service industry, but this is exactly where she wants to be. And some of us find that young, but I think it's about living that, like actually living our truth and what we really want to do.
Right. So you say about the service industry. So do you think like a waiter or waitress would?
Yeah, like this is, when I was talking to my friend who this is inspired by, we talked a lot about the service industry and about how some stuff that kept coming up was her sort of saying, I'm here to serve them. And I create a safe space for people. That's what I do. I'm kind of the pseudo therapist that creates a space for people that the truth is nobody knows about me. And people will say I'm family and they care so much about me, but I'm not invited to any family events I don't go to weddings. I do the hair for it, but I won't know even if a client passes away unless they just don't show up again. So we would talk about the end of the day for them, you know, like, and the thing is that even through all these stories and what we talk about, the reason why the story was so important for me to tell, there wasn't judgment. There's no judgment even coming from the person who tell me these stories. They just held space. And so it's just interesting to look at the perspective from the service industry that they do share themes. There's themes throughout this, and a big part of it is serving us.
It's described as a dramedy. What elements are drama, and can you talk about some of the more comedic elements? Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, like even the show winning, like it won it is based in comedy, but I always say that things, that I always call it a dramedy because I don't necessarily know what everyone's going to laugh at.
You're right.
I say comedy because I want them to find laughter, but there's also these moments of truth. And there's always moments of truth in comedy to me. And that's why I say it's a drama in some ways, because each one of these people believes these are their stories and it's a true belief for them. So they wouldn't say it's comedy. They would say it's drama. But as the writer, I just call it a dramedy because I think that there is some moments that I think sink into truth. And I've been on stage and watched the audience kind of take a breath in a moment in some of these things.
It sounds just great. Joanna, I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, what do you hope fringe audiences are going to take a walk away from the show with?
Well, I want them to think about what they're telling their stylist and if it's actually going to be a secret, but also how we just treat people, how we treat our stylists, what we do. And yeah, then they should consider tipping their stylist, you know, think about that.
Or their waiter.
Yes, or their waiter. Or
anybody, their taxi driver, anybody in the service industry.
Yes, and just to think like, it's not, I mean, yes, this is a service, but at the end of the day, like, we impact them just as much as they impact us. We make and break each other's days. So it's just something to consider.
Oh, fantastic. Joanna, this has been so awesome meeting you. All the best while you're here in Winnipeg, and let's hope all the shows get sold out. Thanks for taking the time to stop by and talk to me today. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
For our Classic 107 listeners, Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, Confessions of a Hairstylist takes place at the Asper Center for Theatre and Film at the University of Winnipeg, which is at 400 Colony Street. For details on showtimes, visit the Fringe Festival website or go to classic107.com. I've embedded a direct link to the Fringe Festival page where you can see showtimes in the article that you can find up at classic107.com. Joanna, thanks again.
Thank you.